Good morning, and welcome to Modernizing Your Identity Governance Solution. My name is Alisha Scott. I'm a Solutions Catalyst at UberEther. Joining me today on the panel is Justin Abold-LaBreche, the co-director of the Enterprise Digitalization and Case Management Office at the Internal Revenue Service. Additionally joining me is Rajive Mathur, the Senior Advisor to the Commissioner and Outgoing CIO of the Social Security Administration. So today, we'll be talking about how government agencies are still on some legacy IAM systems, and these systems are coming to the end of life. So we're going to cover how modern solutions will not only protect your organization, but enable larger digital transformation efforts. So Rajive, let's start off with you. How would you define the digital identity? And can you also touch on how the Social Security Administration is moving away from the Social Security number as an identifier towards layers of different data to authenticate users?
Good morning, Alisha, and thank you. Let me first start by saying that the Social Security Administration is not moving away from the Social Security number as an identifier. It is an important point to make, and I know that the identifier, the Social Security number as an identifier, is something that over the past multiple decades, both private sector and public sector have used as an authenticator. It's a great identifier. In fact, you need a number, you need some way to connect a person with the benefits that they may be receiving from an agency, or whether you're dealing with a bank or some other private sector entity. The SSN is the only non-biometric identifier or attribute that sticks with you from pretty much when you're from birth all the way to death. So in that regard, the SSN is a great identifier. Where the problem comes in is when we start using the Social Security number as an authenticator. What that means is that, let's suppose that I know your Social Security number, therefore I must be you. When we use the SSN as a proxy for authentication, that's where the problem comes in. And we are moving towards, at SSA, moving away from this idea of knowledge-based authentication to more of a multi-factor authentication. And what that means is that we will ask you for your address, we will ask you for your SSN and a number of other attributes, but we want to make sure that you also have control of that address where we send notices. So it's evidence-based. In addition to making sure that we have verified the attributes about you, we're also making sure that you are who you say you are and you have control over some of those attributes. So that's an important point, and the SSN will continue to be an important part of how we do business. It's kind of part of our DNA. In terms of what a digital identity is, now let me say that a digital identity is a unique representation of an individual. Now that, in the case of an email provider, you can have multiple identities. You may have multiple email addresses, and that's okay. But it really depends on the risk of the service you're trying to access with that identity. When it comes to Social Security and Social Security Administration, we're looking for that one unique identity that you have, because it's important that you are able to access the benefits that you're entitled to from Social Security. So for us, it's important that not only we know what the identity is, but that you have control over that identity and control over those attributes. For example, that address where we send notices. It's an exciting time, this notion of identity, this notion of digital transformation. We'll probably get into that further in this conversation, but we are focused on identity and on transformation when it comes to how we conduct business. Doesn't mean that our legacy channels, our live channels, our call centers, or our field offices are going away. By any means, that's not the case. What this is more service options. And identity, digital identity, allows us to do that.
That's wonderful. So I know you mentioned that you're going to now ask people for their address and other additional information that they may know. Are you going to ask them for any physical evidence of things that they may have to verify that they are who they say they are?
Absolutely. I mean, there are many ways to do that. And of course, in a virtual world, how do you ensure that somebody is who they say they are? You know, the idea of being able to get a digital identity and identity proofing, which is a part of identity proofing process, it's a huge challenge. And it's a huge challenge because everybody doesn't always have documentation, and we need to serve the entire nation. Anybody who wants to do business with us should be able to do it virtually or in person. And so we can't do this alone. And when it comes to verifying somebody's identity, it's important that we partner up. So part of the process, part of the ongoing process and looking forward is that every time we touch a consumer, for example, if they're calling in to conduct their business with Social Security or with the Department of Education or maybe with the IRS, is there a chance for us at that point to say, okay, we know who you are now. Let's give you a credential. Let's let you have that digital identity so that you can now interact with us virtually if you choose to do so. And so there are many ways to get to that verification. Doesn't have to be document-based, but it needs to be a proxy for that. And that's what NIST has outlined, is a variety of different ways to be able to do that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So Justin, could you describe a little bit about your approach to enterprise case management and discuss how the IRS uses it to share information across multiple systems?
Sure, Alisha. I just want to start out by saying I'm really pleased to be here with you and Rajive talking about identity management. And I wanted to draw a connection at the top. Rajive was talking a lot about that external identity management as it relates to the customer coming in for service to the SSA. And what I'm going to talk a lot about today is actually inside the IRS, how are we sharing information and protecting identities as we talk internally from one part of the IRS to another using our case management system. So case management for us is really a core component of our IRS integrated business modernization plan. And we're trying to consolidate 60 plus legacy systems that today can't talk to one another, but often are intersecting with the same customer journey. So a customer who might start out with a taxpayer might start out on our customer service line. Maybe at some point they're coming over to our exam or audit line or our collection line or over to appeals or taxpayer advocate. And today we have to have a lot of manual handoffs as that case follows, that interaction follows the taxpayer. And what I'm trying to do with my office, together with my partner Harrison Smith on the digitalization side, is make that seamless so that that case can follow the customer journey through the IRS, and each part of the IRS can access the right part, speeding up service for the taxpayer, making it easier to fully understand what the taxpayer needs. And so there's less need for the taxpayer to re-inform us about the last interaction they had, and we're able to get to a solution for the taxpayer faster. And so one of the core concepts we have is this 360-degree view. So when you're interacting with us in the IRS, we want to be able to know all the different places you've gone to get service or the different things you're working with. And so that that person who's in front of you, wherever that is, on the phone, face-to-face, by correspondence, they know what those interactions are and they can help you resolve them. And in the long term, where we're hoping to go is a place where when you call in or you write into us and you might say, hey, I want to pay a balance due. And we're able to say, okay, yes, that makes a lot of sense. We've got this 360-degree view. We can see that you have a balance due. But oh, by the way, it looks like you have a return outstanding as well. Can we help you file that return? What can we do to resolve that issue on the same call? And so that's where we're headed, from a place today where those cases, that interaction, it's hard for us to see as you move through our big IRS journey, to a place where we can see that. We're able to, at each step of the way, help you with the issues that you brought, and then proactively get to a place where we can say, and it looks like you need assistance here. Can we help you deal with that today so it doesn't become a longer term issue for you?
I love that proactive approach, and it seems like it will solve a lot of pain points for users. So how would you deal with a lot of people doing paper documents when they're filing their taxes or doing any interactions with the IRS?
Well, that's a great question. Well, first, I want to make a public service announcement and encourage everyone to use our e-file capabilities. And if you're someone who needs additional assistance, we have beta centers that can help. And we also have a free file program for people who may need assistance filing and not have the money to do so by paying a paper preparer. So I really want to put out there and just say we have a lot of opportunities for people to use electronic filing. And that does speed things through the process and get refunds out faster. So first and foremost, you can help us by taking advantage of the e-file capabilities we have. But there are people and there are situations where paper's still the best channel for them. And so what we're doing now is we're putting a lot of emphasis on digitalization. So if something comes to us in paper, being able to convert that to a digital format. And we have that in place a lot on the filing side, but we need to expand that to other business interactions with us. And today there might be places where we don't have a natively digital channel for you to be able to do business with us. And so my co-director, Harrison Smith, is really looking together with our business partners to say, okay, where can we bring new digital channels forward? So you have that opportunity, that option if you want to use that channel. And so let me put in a plug now for our amended 1040. So before you had to file an amended 1040 on paper, that was the only channel we gave you. But just as an example, that's a place where we said, we know that the customer, the taxpayer wants to be able to do that 1040 amended return, 1040X electronically. And so now we provided that new channel. So you can come in digitally from the start, which makes it easier for us. And again, it speeds up our opportunity to resolve that issue for you.
Absolutely, and it also saves trees.
It sure does.
Okay, so Rajive, could you talk about how moving away from the Social Security number will impact your agency's overall digital transformation and any security implications it may have?
Sure. First, let me just say that, Justin, talking about all the forms and all the things that you all are doing at the IRS is great. It's bringing back some great memories for me when I was over there. So glad to see that amended returns has gone online. I think that's great. And I had to give myself a double take, by the way, to figure out what that was, just, because, you tend to forget sometimes. But, when it comes to moving away from the Social Security number, again, we're not moving away from the Social Security number as an identifier. It's really important for us. But when we talk about digital transformation, what that means for us and how we're thinking about it is that there are two sides of the same coin. One side is making sure that you have the right authentication and the right framework to be able to identify whoever you're doing business with. So whoever's coming to your front door, you want to be able to do that. And you got to be able to do that well, regardless of channel, regardless of whether they're coming in online, whether they're coming in on the phones or in the field offices. The other side of the coin is making sure that once they get to your front door, do they have something to do? And what I say internally is, do we have the goods on the shelf for somebody to actually use once they've gotten in our front door? And so digital transformation is making sure for us that we can have enough valuable services, end-to-end services for somebody when a member of the public wants to do business with us. They should be able to do everything online that they would otherwise be able to do in a field office or a call center. We call that service channel parity. It's important. It's an important concept for us where somebody should be able to do a change of address, get a replacement SSN card. These are things that are core to what we do in our mission, and we need to be able to do that end to end. Now, the first step for that, of course, is to be able to connect all the different technology systems to allow an end-to-end transaction. Not always easy, and it's certainly not overnight. But as Justin mentioned, the first part of that is being able to accept a digital input. And once you get that digital information in a digital machine readable format inside your four walls, then what can you do with that information? What you need to be able to process it within your system. So digital transformation certainly is a big part of it is public facing, but a big part of it is, as we started off at the top of this panel, is also how you handle that information internally. Let me go back to the service channel parity question because while it's important for us to be able to have service channel parity, It's also important to note that all of our customers, and we have to serve everybody. We can't decide as a government agency, you can't decide not to serve somebody. It's important that we provide the options for people to go outside the digital channel. If they need to go to a field office, let them go easily. If they need to go to a call center, let them do that too. But that identity still helps them be able to traverse those different channels. Every method of identity doesn't apply to everybody. So we are looking for ways for us to be able to provide you the access you need to do the work that you need to do with us. Doesn't mean you need to cross over a 20-foot wall. Maybe you can only do it. Maybe we only need to ask you the right questions for being able to go over a 5-foot wall, do the work you need to do with us, and then you can leave. So transformation is about coverage, 100% coverage across the nation.
That's great. So with you having both internal and external users, it sounds like you have a big audience that you're trying to target. And unlike the private sector where you're able to have maybe a little bit smaller audience or pick, how do you deal with inclusion, and how do you plan to do your rollout for this?
Well, that's a great question. I was just on another call last night with somebody about this particular issue. I mean, in the U.S., estimates range from high teens to 20-25% of the population are unbanked or underbanked, and how do we make sure that we're able to reach that population? So you can't always ask them for financial information because they don't have it. Inclusion is an important part of identity, and when I say 100% coverage, that's what I mean. Is we have to find a way to do it. Let me just say that earlier in my comments, we touch customers in multiple ways within our own agency and also across the government. Every public-facing agency touches a member of the public in so many different ways. Each of those touch points is a chance for us to be able to authenticate, proof and authenticate, provide them the service they need, but then find a way to get them onto the digital platform. And which, by the way, that digital identity is not just for online. It's also for call centers. It's also for live field office visits. So each opportunity, it gives us a chance to include everybody. And that's really, it's a whole of government approach in that regard. Whether it's us, whether it's other public-facing agencies like the VA, IRS, Department of Ed, and other agencies, how do we partner up with them to make sure that each touch point becomes an opportunity for us to convert them and at the same time provide them the service that they're looking for.
That's wonderful. I'm glad that you are addressing inclusion. I think it's very important, especially in the identity space. So Justin, the work that you lead will migrate 300 business processes into one platform. Can you discuss how you're approaching that from an identity perspective?
I sure can, Alisha, but first I wanted to just acknowledge the great work that Rajive did with the IRS when he led our Office of Online Services. I mean, I think to a large extent, the reason where we are as far along as we are is because of the foundation he set up when he worked with us. So I just want a really big thank you. And again, just a pleasure being on this panel with him. I also wanted to tie into a couple of the messages that Rajive said, because I think they're so important, and they're the same messages the IRS has, which is, we're here to serve everyone. That's just unique about Social Security and the IRS, is that we have this national customer base, and we have to be able to give everyone the opportunity to interact with us and take care of that business need. And we're committed in the same way that Rajiv was talking about inclusion. And I just want to highlight a couple things. One, on the economic impact payments, we've spent an enormous amount of time trying to reach out to communities that are underserved, who may not be banked, who may not have previously had a filing obligation, but they're still entitled to this economic impact payment. And there's still an opportunity for them to come in and make certain they're registering to receive that. And also, in the same way, this unbanked population that may need and want to pay a bill with the IRS, but can't do so digitally because they don't have a credit card, they don't have a bank account possibly. And so we have the Pay Near Me option where they can go to a retail store and be able to pay in cash. So just, I wanted to tie that back to say that same commitment to the underserved, the unbanked is there in the IRS, and especially a lot of emphasis over the past year extending our services out to customers for whom English may not be their first or preferred language, but trying to make certain that they have the same high quality service that everybody else is getting and to which every American is entitled. Having said that external facing part, my piece is really internal. So my piece is trying to make certain that as we migrate these 300 business processes from 60 different case management systems, 45,000 users, all in their own little stovepipes today into a shared platform, and we're using Pegasystems, which is commercial off-the-shelf technology, that we're doing that in a way that keeps their identities safe and secure. And we have an IRS commitment that only those employees who have a need to see your information see that. So even though we're bringing everyone to a shared platform, that doesn't mean that it's a free-for-all and everyone can see everything. That's not our goal, and that's not how we operate. So I'm actually quite fortunate because we have this really strong enterprise security layer in place around the IRS that protects your data, And our Pega off-the-shelf platform has a rigorous security model. And so we're inheriting a lot of those security controls at the periphery from the broader IRS. And so, for example, we have a shared sign-on where you have to use an access card to be able to log in and take advantage to get into our case management platform. So right from the start, we know that the people coming in, our employees, are our employees, they've got their PIV card, everything's set up. And then beyond that, we use a combination of rules-based access controls and attribute-based access controls. And that ensures that a person who has a need to see that information can see that information. And so I might have a case file that today I print out and I send from place to place, but in the future, there's just gonna be a case file resting in ECM. But when I give someone access to that, I can give them access to the full case file, to a part of the case file, to take certain types of actions, either based on their role or the attribute of the information itself. So I think that is a really powerful way that internal to the IRS, we're still protecting people's information, ensuring that only those individuals with a need to know or take action on a particular part of that case file can do so. But we still get the advantage now of, I'm gonna give you a great example. If your interaction with us is an exam, you have the right to an independent appeal. And today, that exam case file, a part of it that goes to appeals has to get printed out, mailed, sent to appeals, who opens it up and has to then transfer that into their case management system, then work on it. And then as the Taxpayer First Act gives you a right to certain parts of that appeals case file, print it out, send it to you. And we have to provide a digital option at the end, which we're working toward. Case management, in enterprise case management, we're going to be able to say, there's a case file, it's an exam, and now we'll give appeals the right access to that case file. They won't have to mail it, print it, send it, just it'll be there. They're looking at it now from the appeals perspective. And then when it comes time to share that by request with a taxpayer, it's just a question again of, okay, a part of that case file needs to be converted into a digital package and securely sent to you. So it's internally trying to achieve the same level of integrity that I think Rajive was talking about at the external side.
That's great. And with you doing so many different business processes into one platform, how are you managing your project? Are you doing an agile methodology? And how do you describe your definition of done or success?
Those are great questions. Yes, we are using Agile. We're using SAFe as our Agile methodology. And we're doing a couple of different things to tackle this. So we're taking like processes and calling them lines of business and trying to bring them in together to standardize business processes and use as much reusable counterparts. We're prioritizing a body of work which we know uses a lot of the same data that other processes need so that we can early on build those data pipelines and then we can just reuse them and be able to scale up very quickly. And then throughout all of this, we're looking at upstream and downstream. So how do we get case flow, the customer journey, all in ECM as smoothly and seamlessly as we possibly can? So it gives you a little sense of how we're approaching the project.
That's great. It's great to see that more government agencies are moving towards the agile methodology instead of, doing waterfall for their projects.
Absolutely.
So I guess with 5 minutes left, I wanted to ask both of you if you have any lessons learned that you would like to share with people who are also going through trying to do a digital transformation for their agency. Rajive, we'll start off with you.
Sure, thanks. And thanks, Justin, for those kind words. Great to see the progress you guys have made. Let me say that when it comes to transformation, when it comes to modernization, which is really an overused word, it's got to start with the customer. Lessons learned, and premise number one is if you're going to do something that's going to be different and better for the customer, all about better service. At the end of the day, it is all about better service delivery across all channels. It's got to start with the customer. So figure out what that customer is intending to do and wants to do, and then work outside in. I think that's an important first principle, and got to use the right consumer data. We have the data, right? We all have all of our agencies. We all have data around why someone is coming to us, and whether it's through different visits to field offices or to call centers, whatever your service channel is, you know why they're coming. And you also know what they're trying to do generally. So you got to look at that data and start with that customer, and then start thinking about how do you make it more efficient, more easy for them based on that. That'll be number one. Number two, I would say, is that these issues that we're all facing, especially when you're a large public-facing agency, we can't do it alone. This stuff is really hard, and identity especially is a societal problem. It's not just for government agencies. It's not just for the private sector. We're all facing the same issues, and the same issues we're facing, the things that we're trying to balance, are things like making sure that we have universal coverage, full coverage across any customer that wants to do business with us, whether it's us or whether it's an insurance company, same issue in that regard. Number two, got to balance risk. And what is this customer trying to do? And then also balance fraud. I mean, those are the three legs of that stool. And trying to balance coverage with ease of use, with risk, is going to be the challenge, continual. So one of the things that's going to have to be done is to be able to balance that. The third thing I would say is being able to make sure that you can have an institutional capability, what that means is it has to be enterprise-wide. It can't just be a particular organization within an agency. So we have to be able to think about the customer across all of the internal silos that may exist in an organization. So think about when they're going to touch us, how are we making sure we're delivering service as an agency, as a Social Security Administration, and not as one office versus another. It's an exciting time, like I started saying earlier, when it comes to transformation, digital transformation, and when it comes to identity. I think we all work together. We need to be able to work together to figure this out, both public and private sector. Thank you.
Perfect. And how about you, Justin?
I think Rajive made the biggest point, which is the customer is at the heart of what we're trying to do. And so everything needs to be oriented on making that customer experience delightful, inclusive, so all our customers have equal access, and then equally delightful so that people really are interacting with us in a way that says, hey, the easy things are easy, even when we work with the government. And that's what we want. We want the easy things to be easy for everybody, and everybody has access to these high quality services that we're providing.
Wonderful. I just want to thank you both, Justin and Rajive, for providing such great information and making this an enlightening session. I truly learned a lot, and I hope our audience will as well. I hope you both have a wonderful day, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alisha. Thanks, Rajive.